Hey, everybody. Welcome to another Playful Humans podcast. I'm your host, Mike Montague, and my guest this week, we're talking about happy health. It's Amy Cattaneo. No, I already messed that up. I can tell. How about you say it, Amy?
Cattaneo.
Cattaneo. I knew I forgot something before I hit record. There it is, Amy Cattaneo. No, still not it. You can find her at her website. If you can spell that, how about I just put that in the show notes, and we're off to a banging start already. She also has a podcast, which might be easier to spell. It's just Happy Health. You can look for it wherever you're listening to this podcast. Here we go.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Keep chasing the sunshine. And go
All right, Amy, I feel like I should have re-recorded that intro, but I'm going to leave it because it's the Playful Humans podcast, and that was more fun than any serious intro I was going to.
It's all good. It's a common thing.
Amy Cattaneo.
Cattaneo.
Cattaneo. Dang it, it's still off. Okay, Amy.
It happens all the time.
I'm usually pretty good at this. I do this for a living. I've done like 600 podcasts. I used to be on radio, but this one has got me. So you can go to our website and find out more about happy health. That's what we're talking about today. But we like to start with the joke of the week, Amy. The joke of the week is brought to you by this week, peeing in the shower. Peeing in the shower. There's one special note here. You have to be the one taking a shower, peeing in the shower. My wife did not appreciate that. What did the grape say when it was stepped on?
I don't know.
Nothing. It just let out a little whine. All
I'm going to
right.
use that one.
Do you have a joke for us?
I do have a joke. So let's see if I can get through it without laughing, because I usually can't. But so a pirate walks into the bar with a steering wheel in his pants, a peg leg, and a parrot on his shoulder. The bartender says, "Hey, you got a steering wheel in your pants." The pirate says, "Arr, it's driving me nuts."
I like that one. I haven't heard it in a while, but I like it. It's driving me nuts.
It's driving me nuts.
All right. So tell everybody a little bit about happy health. How did you get into this, and why did you add the happy part?
Okay, so basically, to make a very long story short, I went to school for accounting. I have a master's in accounting, and that was what I did for quite some time. I did it for 6 years, and I realized that it was sucking my soul. I'm originally from New York, so I was working in the New York hours just a lot as a tax accountant, and the money was great. I had on paper what looked like a great life, but I wasn't happy. I was barely seeing my husband. I was barely seeing sunlight because I was working so much. And I just realized I needed a change. So in that time, my husband and I also decided to move to Texas, which my family had migrated. My parents had lived here for quite some time. And we both decided to do different careers. I knew that I liked taking people from point A to point B, because as a tax accountant, one of the things that they had me do was teach other people on the tax software. And I love that. Like, I was doing webinars and seminars, and I was like, I love that part of it. And I used to be a tutor in high school and college. So I kind of just jumped around. I was a pre-K teacher. I was a tutor again, and I couldn't really find my thing. My husband and I eventually bought a gym, and that's taking people from point A to point B, but it wasn't like my true passion. Like, he loves working out. He loves doing all that. But it's like, I saw a need for helping people outside of just their fitness. And that's part of how I got into doTERRA. That's what I do now. And using essential oils was a way that I can help people outside of the gym, because I use social media to help everybody anywhere. And I love that I can connect with people, because typically people come to me and they're like, "Hey, I have like a headache, or I have like an earache or whatever." But when we get down to it, it's, "Hey, I have stress. I have anxiety. I have my kids are driving me nuts, and I'm overwhelmed." And that was it opened up a whole thing for me, being able to help women with that. On top of that, I just kept getting asked from my gym clients, from my doTERRA clients, how do you stay so happy? People know that I have multiple businesses with my husband. And it had been something that I've been thinking about, like, how do I actually teach that? Right. Like, I don't know that that's teachable, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it. And I created a course. I created a course. It's called the Happiness Program. It was something that has been on my heart for a long time, but I didn't think like it's basically creating something that most people don't know about, right? Like we know about a course, we know about happiness, but I don't think you've ever thought about taking a course for happiness. So it's fantastic. I'm in my second launch right now. The first time I did it, it was honestly just to have proof of concept, because I was like, is this gonna work? Like, is this gonna work? And I made it 8 weeks. It's modules and workbooks, because I'm also like a super organized person. So I was able to do that. And we do coaching calls, and just hearing the testimonials from these women that went through, it was 20 women that went through the first time. It was fantastic. And I was like, I have something here. I have something that I can actually help people, help women in particular, become healthier and happier through this course and through my essential oils. So that's it in a nutshell. That's what I'm doing now. I launched my happiness program again. I'm in week 5. We just had the call last night, and it was fantastic. So that's it.
I definitely want to hear more about that, but I also wanted to second a lot of what you said, because I'm in a very similar spot. I think when people think about play or happiness project, they think of like the wacky arrow through the head guy and like people wearing crazy plaid suits and stuff. But I love that you're an accountant. I was a computer programmer. I was also on the radio and doing other fun things, but I definitely have a nerd side to me, and I'm a professional. I also work in a corporate environment. So I'm not just, all like, rainbows and wacky things all day. Like, not that there's anything wrong with that, but
sure.
I feel like this opens up and is more accessible to more people, because like you said, there's a course to it. There's research behind all of this too. We're not just making this up. Like you said, a ton of health things are linked to stress, and the fact that we don't play, and nobody teaches that in school. Nobody teaches you how to play for a living and enjoy your career, or even how to make yourself happy again. 100%. And so instead, I feel like we always get sucked into what commercials and marketing and the economy tells you will make you happy. And I have found that none of that actually works.
I literally start, one of the first modules in the course is having people that have an exercise on what is happiness to you. And everybody struggles with it. You know what I mean? Because it's like, and everybody thinks I'm going to tell them all the like, what is happiness? And here's how we go down that path. And it's like, no. I want you to discover what it actually means to you. And then I'm going to help you get there, right? Like how to get from that point that you have created to the next point, right? And one of the pillars, could we go through 5 pillars? And one of them is literally how to have fun. Like, what does that mean to you? And it's an exercise, and it kind of switches people's mindset, because you don't think about doing an actual written out exercise. We have to watch a video and I explain like, what is fun? What does that mean? Because for so long, like once you become a kid, once you're become an adult, nobody really encourages fun anymore. It's like, it's too serious. We have to do all the adulting things. And it's like, what's the point of making money and doing all this if we're not going to have fun and enjoy it all,
Yeah. Well, I love that too. 2 things that I think jumped out for me there. One is we both did the thing where you're climbing the corporate ladder, and sometimes when you get to the top, you realize there's nothing up there.
Right.
There's nothing at the top of this ladder. If you didn't bring it with you, you're not going to have it up there. There's more of the same if you want that, right? But you can keep climbing, but you can see the top. I can't say that I like conquer the world, right? I wasn't like Jeff Bezos or anything, but I feel like I was close enough that I could see the top and there was nothing up there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's huge. And then I also love what you said about the types of happiness. I have a playfulness quiz on the website. You can go to playfulhumans.com/quiz. There's a whole bunch of different types of play, and there's different types of happiness, right? Do you enjoy small, intimate gathering with your friends and family? Do you love a big raging party? Do you love exploring out in the woods by yourself? All of those can be fun in different things, or it could be solving a really intricate, 1,000-piece puzzle, or it could be playing with Legos or doing something artistic that's completely creative. that's all up to you, and you have to really design your life, but also I think remember what it was that makes you happy, right? How do you encourage people to even kind of figure that out?
So I also have a quiz as well, but it's going through like different pieces. So I kind of break it down into like mindset, like what makes your mind happy, right? Like what kinds of shows or books do you want to enjoy? Not what you're enjoying now, because sometimes we're just
Right.
going through the motions. Same thing for health and wellness. Like what kind of exercise like lights you up? Right? Like not what you think you should be doing because that's going to make you lose weight. Like if you like dancing, are you dancing? Right? Can you create a program that you actually get to your goal of losing weight because you're dancing, not just going to do weight training because that's what you feel like you have to do, right? So for each pillar where I ask questions, and it just gets people thinking on like, what does that mean for them? And then having people think outside of their comfort zone, because again, as adults, we think this is what I need to do. I need to have that job. I need to go to school. I need to do this. I have to be a mom. I have to be a dad. It's like, is that really true? Is that the path that you want to take? And because I made such a drastic change in my life, I can tell people, hey, I know that that's not going to get you there. I was the same thing. I was a month away from getting a huge promotion as an accountant, and I quit, and everybody thought I lost my mind. And it's like, no, I actually found my mind because I was losing myself. And I see that with people. It's like, sure, you have this stable job, but does it make you happy? Are you loving it? Are you doing it just because you feel like you have to and you're already so far down the path? Who cares? You can switch it. I did,
Yeah.
even though everybody thought I was nuts.
I love that. Seth Godin, the famous author, talks about your past being a gift to your present self, and it doesn't mean you have to accept it, because we all learn skills that we can take to our next job and in whatever we're doing in the next. So it wasn't a complete waste, even if you don't continue down that path. But I also I do sales training during the day, and we have this phrase like, would you rather not train your salespeople and have them stay, or
Right.
train them and have them leave? Because if they train and leave, that stinks. But if you don't train them and they stay and they just continue to stink,
Yeah.
then you got a long-term problem there. And I
Right.
feel like careers are the same way. Would you rather spend the rest of your life in a career you don't like, or spend a few years resetting and learning a new career and a new path, and then get to enjoy the rest of your life? For me, that's a short-term investment for a long-term gain,
100%.
which is so great.
And what I have found is that when people start getting on the path that they really want to take, it actually speeds up their progress. They actually go a little faster because they're so passionate, they're happy, they're actually enjoying the journey and not so worried about the destination, and they end up getting there faster. So it's, like I'll never know where I would have been if I stayed on that path as an accountant, and I don't care because my life is great now and I actually have an impact. And I think a lot of times people forget like why they got into something and why they can actually switch it and how they grow as a person. I decided to be an accountant when I was 17.
Right.
Like, what did I know at 17,
I think about that too. And I tell that story a lot for people, but in case they haven't heard it, I have two good stories here. One, for me personally, was I wanted to be on the radio when I was a kid. And
Right.
in fifth grade, I went and I did this radio thing and I loved it and I wanted to do it. Well, I had no idea at 13 years old what the job of radio was.
Mhm.
And at the same time, I was talented in computers, but I was like, I don't want to be a nerd. I don't want to be stuck in a room by myself behind a computer all day.
Yeah.
No, I want to be cool. I want to be on the radio. And so I get on the radio, and guess what the job is? Sitting in a room by yourself behind a computer all day. And I was like, oh no, this sucks. So I found out that I love the live entertainment more.
Right.
And I love interacting with people live so much more than I do, telling jokes to nobody laughing.
100%.
So I think that's a huge lesson, and I appreciate you sharing. Where can people find the course?
So right now it's not launched the second time because I'm right in the middle, but to get on the wait list, it's amycattaneo.com/happy. And
there you go, /happy on the Amy Cattaneo .com website. And I also wanted to tell the story. Have you heard the story of the Mexican fisherman, the parable?
I'm ready.
I love this. It was in a happiness book that I read, but it makes it so crystal clear to me that there was an American businessman on vacation in Mexico, and he saw this fisherman kind of wrapping up for the day pretty early, like 11 o'clock or noon. And he was talking to him, and he said, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I went fishing, this morning. I'm going to go have lunch with my wife and, have a drink on the beach, play with my kids this afternoon, and, take the rest of the day off. And the American businessman said, well, if you worked the afternoon too, you could double your output, and then you could maybe buy another boat, you could hire staff and really scale this thing. And eventually, if you got it big enough, you could sell it off and retire. And he said, well, what would I do then? He goes, well, you could fish whenever you wanted. You could have lunch with your wife, have drinks on the beach, and play with your kids. And you're like, oh, like that's what I feel like we're all on, is we've been sold this treadmill that it's like, if you just produce enough, you can enjoy your life someday. And it's like, no, you can enjoy it now and just skip all of that.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. It's one of the things I teach is like scheduling in fun if you can't do it right away, right? Like sometimes like us probably, we just like do it naturally. But if that's not you yet, schedule it in like you would a doctor's appointment. Like go to the movies by yourself or whatever your fun is, like do that and just stick to it just as you would any other important appointments in your life, because then you start actually looking at your week and not like, oh, I did so many of this. I had this appointment at that. You're like, I had fun. I went to the movies. I went to lunch on like a Tuesday when I never do that. And it just becomes easier, right? Because it's scheduled in your calendar.
So I want to go back to your big pivot, because I think that's, really where people's anxiety is about this. Like, it all sounds good in theory until you actually have to do it. So tell me about why a gym and how that came up with your husband. And then what was that transition like? Was there really a down part, or did it, come easier to you than you thought it would?
A little bit of both. So my husband was also on his own journey of, we both in the New York business world, we both grew up not with a lot of money. So accountant, and he went into sales, like that's the fastest path to cash, right? Like when you don't have it, you grow up in the projects, you're like, I need to get out. So that's why we both went on those paths, but it wasn't working. He, when we moved to Texas, he was going to be a trainer, like a personal trainer. And he started working at this job, and he actually moved up in the rank, and the owner knew, we became good friends with the owner. He knew both of us had business backgrounds. And so he asked us, he's like, hey, do you guys want to buy the gym? And honestly, it wasn't even on our radar of like owning a gym. Like we were just trying to figure out like our next step. I was still a teacher at the time. And we were like, I guess so. I mean, let's see what that takes. So you got a loan. We were not good at saving. So we did not have money to buy this. This was all through an SBA loan. And it was a big learning curve. However, it was so exciting because we, like you mentioned before, we were able to take all the skills that we had learned. He was in sales and he was part of an advertising company. I was an accountant. So I knew all the spreadsheets. I was doing all the taxes, all the bookkeeping, all the things, right, of organizing the back end of a business. So we were able to use those skills, but we both really liked helping people. So I was able to easily train somebody, right? Like at the end of the day, like once you learn training philosophies, it's just same thing, taking somebody from point A to point B. It's not, you know what I mean? It's not like a big learning curve for that. So there was troubled times. I mean, there were times when we were accountants and sales owner to just building a gym. So we went to my parents' house a lot for dinner because sometimes we couldn't always.
That's a good trick. I like that one too. Yeah.
It works. My parents were super supportive in that way, but it's been 10 years. We've owned the gym for 10 years and it's a thriving business. It's amazing. Both of us barely have to be there. So it is amazing. And we help many more people because now we have 10 employees and it's not just the two of us. So it was a little hard. I'm not going to lie and just say, oh, it was all rainbows and sunshine, but it was exciting. You know what I mean? Like I was already working crazy hours as an accountant and I wasn't helping anybody.
There you go. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when I'm working crazy hours for myself and I'm changing somebody's life because I'm helping them lose 100 pounds, like that's a big difference. So, you know,
It is amazing how big of a difference it is just doing anything for yourself. That's one of the aspects of play that I love so much is it has to be freely chosen. You can't force somebody to have fun
right,
or be happy or play. They have to choose that for
exactly.
themselves. And once you do choose for yourself, it changes everything. Because like you said, even if you're working the same hours, doing the same job, now it's for you instead of somebody
Mhm.
else, and you're building up all that equity and earned
Exactly.
interest over time. Was there a biggest lesson learned or hurdle you had to get over?
I think the biggest lesson that we had to get over was just, being by yourself, when I was
Mm.
an employee, there was always somebody else I can lean on when you're an employer, and I'm just solo entrepreneur. There's nobody to really lean on. So just stepping into that I have the answers, and if I can't, I can go to mentors or coaches to find them. But I think that was the biggest lesson, just having that switch. And now I can't even imagine going back, like making my own hours and doing all that. And just,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's huge. And you said it. I think what scares people or where people get stuck is you have to make all those decisions. It's on you now. So, it's easy to say, oh, the boss should really do this. But
yeah,
when you run out of ideas, it's on you to come up with the next one. And there is plenty of help. It can be
yeah, of
done
course.
and you figure it out, but it's definitely changing the game when it's on you. So either you do it or nobody does.
Yeah, but there's a
That's cool.
there's a there's a little bit of scariness, but there's also so much freedom in that too. So that's where I find my fun and my happiness is that I do get to create all of that. Yeah, I never get to turn off, but I also always get to do whatever I want. So there's a happiness in that.
Where do you see this going? What's the ideal life or career for you? Have you thought about, because I know everybody feels like the pressure is to scale their business, and sometimes I think that can take all the fun out of it. So have you found an equilibrium, or what would be like your bucket list idea of fun?
Yeah, so we definitely have thought about scaling it. Right now, we are putting a person in place as our general manager so that we don't have to be there almost at all. So that is in the process. And this past year, I worked on really solidifying all our systems and processes and just making everything just like super organized. So that's where the gym is going with doTERRA. I definitely plan on scaling it to helping as many people as women I can with that, because it is a great business. And then with the course, I just want to keep growing it now that I have proof of concept and I can see that these women are just getting such profound things out of it. I'm going to just keep going. And my goal with that is actually to have an ongoing, like once you're done with me for 8 weeks, and because we do set goals at the end of that 8 weeks, like helping these women find what their next thing is. Because what I'm finding is a lot of them are like, oh wait, I don't like my job, or I don't like my career, or I don't like this, or I want to start
Yeah.
that. So helping women take it to the next level and do what I did and create whatever they want to create. So that there's different businesses, but
That's cool. No, I appreciate that. And I think, they're different goals and you can change them all the time too. That's the
yeah,
other beauty part of
yeah,
about doing it for yourself. So I had one more serious question for you, then we'll wrap up and we'll play a game and have fun.
love it.
My serious question is, you mentioned your background and I appreciate you sharing that. And as like a middle-class white guy, straight from the middle of the country, I feel like we all have our own baggage. And so
Mhm.
for me, sometimes it is like, well, I can't like take these risks. Like, what if I fail? Like, then I'm an idiot and like I have no excuses
Yeah.
or other things. And I'm wondering, like, from your background, and especially you work a lot with women, is there a different type of head trash, or do you think there's something, maybe a common misconception or something that people have from your background that you think more people should be aware of?
I think a lot of times people, because I'm still friends with a lot of people I grew up with. And there is two kind of buckets. It's like you kind of stay stuck, and that if you try to get out of the situation, like if you leave the Bronx, right? It's like, oh, you're too good for the Bronx, or, so there, I think there's a stigma around that a lot of times people feel like they're leaving people behind when they want to better themselves. And then it's on the other hand on like, well, what can you do to give back? you know, like that's why I'm helping the people that I help, and just trying to see that it doesn't matter where you come from. So some of my clients have, you know, are going through that struggle right now. Some of them have no idea what I'm talking about. They grew up with a lot of money, but they're still miserable. So it's like, it doesn't really matter sometimes, you know, like it doesn't always equate. Like if you have to have struggled to be, you know, to need help with this, it could be either. So I don't know if that answered your question.
No, I think it does. And you're basically, I think, saying the same thing that I was getting around, but I wanted to test where you were coming from, is that I've been broke too. Don't get me wrong. When I was in radio, like I had the power shut off. It sucked. Like I got arrested for being broke because I couldn't pay the taxes on my car and stuff like it. I get it. It sucks. But I also think sometimes there's just so much of a balance, right? You can see it from different perspectives that when you have success, you're like, ooh, what people think is like the answer isn't the answer. And sometimes when you're broke, like we had a great party one night when our power got shut off. We took, you know, lit the candles, we had people over, and it was like, we're having fun, like old school here, you know, put the beer in coolers, and it was a great night. And so I feel like, you know, sometimes I think what you said is everybody can get there from a different direction. And it's just harder to see sometimes because you all have your own blind spot.
It is. And it's, I always, cause I've shared before, my mom's always like, oh, we did great. Like, I never felt that I was poor, you know, like my mom, my parents always provided. I realized later, you know, and then I also, you know, talking to friends, and my husband and I have known each other since we were 9, and they always had a little bit of more money, and it was just, but they didn't do the fun things, you know, like every Sunday, my father would cook a big breakfast, and then we just drive to like upstate New York and all these things. And I didn't realize we were doing those things, that, you know, just going to like some random park because we couldn't really afford to go to like some fancy place. But I just have the memory that we went there, you know, and then I would talk to my husband, and he's like, oh, we didn't do those things, but he always had like name brand clothes because the money was being spent on that. So it's just, you don't realize those things until you're older and you start reflecting, and you're like, oh, wait, I didn't grow up with a lot of money, but there were still great memories. So I think it's just a matter of how you look at it, because, you know, I can talk to my sister, and we obviously grew up together, and she will have a different viewpoint or vantage point on like how she saw a memory. And I'm like, well, we had a great time. And she's like, well, we didn't have any money. I'm like, but what do you mean?
It is. I think those are so funny too. And it does open up your mind to more perspectives. My sister is 7 years younger than me. And so our family was in a much different place when she was growing up than I would, or I would have different memories than she would, because 7 years is a long time, you know, especially when you're a kid. So that's amazing. That's great. And I appreciate you sharing that with us. Now, do you want to play a game?
Let's do it. I'm ready.
All right, we're spinning our wheel of games. There are 10 games that it could land on, and you got Survey Says. Survey Says is pretty easy. All you have to do is name one of the top answers on the card, top 5 answers. We surveyed 100 people, and we asked them, if your shirt accidentally caught on fire, what's the best thing to do?
Drop and roll.
Yes, number 1 answer. There you go. I was starting you off easy. Stop, drop, and roll, number 1. Take it off, number 2. Splash water on it or jump in the pool. Okay, number 2. Name someone whose phone calls you screen.
Telemarketers.
Telemarketers is the number 1 answer. You nailed it again. Bill collectors, nobody, everyone, in-laws, and parents on the list there.
Everyone.
Like no one and everyone is on the list. Wide variety of people out there. Okay, and finally, name a cooked food that's just as good, hot or cold.
Ooh, spinach.
Oh, wow. Not on the list. That's your first strike.
The trainer in me got me.
But I mean, chicken's number 1. That's the trainer part. Cold
I'm thinking like cooked, not cooked. I wasn't thinking like cold.
It's cooked food that then you can eat hot or cold. Pasta, potatoes, carrots, beans, and shrimp made it on the list. So, good answer. That's fun. But you nailed it. You got 2 out of 3. You win. So a free 30-second commercial here for you. Do you have any asks or gives for the audience?
Well, if you would like, I think we already mentioned it, but if you would like to learn more about my happiness course, I'm going to launch it in a few weeks. So that's amycattaneo.com/happy. And if you would like to get into my Facebook group, that is the Happiness Pod on Facebook. You can just search that up and I will give it to you so you could give in the show notes as well. But
Yeah.
I post motivational stuff. I do live videos and just mindset stuff to get you going throughout the week. So.
Amy, I love it. Thank you for being on the show. We didn't really open strong, but we stuck the landing. amycattaneo.com. Check out the course. And there is the podcast as well. Wherever you're listening to this, do that. If you know somebody that needs to hear this podcast, go ahead and share it with them. Send the link over to them right now, and hopefully we can inspire more people to rediscover the power of play. If you're looking to have more fun, flow, and fulfillment in your life, go to playfulhumans.com. Again, the personality quiz is on there. There's also the community you can join and find other adults rediscovering the power of play, and more episodes like this available wherever you listen to podcasts. So have a great one. Whatever you are, be a good one. I feel like that's a good tip. And go out there and play, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
Don't wait for tomorrow. Live for today. Keep on chasing the sunshine and go out and play.
There we go.
Yay.